Welcome to The Network, a success podcast for nurse and healthcare consultants to learn the strategies and tactics to launch and grow a profitable consulting firm. And now for your host, Elle Pearson.
Hello and welcome back to episode 6 of The Network. I'm your host, Elle, and I'm so excited to welcome you back to another episode where we help healthcare professionals interested in launching a independent consulting firm learn the strategies to grow and launch their practice. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to personally invite you inside our free Facebook group called the Nurse Consultant Masterminds. Now, I am so proud of where we are in this group as a community because there are a lot of people sharing resources, collaborating, networking, and just providing support. So whether you are an experienced or an aspiring nurse consultant or healthcare consultant in general, we don't discriminate. Everyone is welcome, whether you are a physician, an RT, if you have a healthcare professional background, we welcome you inside the group if you want to learn more about consulting. So if you want to be a part of that free Facebook group, go to www.facebook.com/Nurse Consultant Masterminds. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about what worked and what didn't work for me in my consulting practice in 2018. Now, I know we're in early February, but we still have time to talk about some of the things that I encountered in my practice. And I definitely feel by me sharing this experience with you, you'll absolutely learn from it. So I'm going to take some time and be a little bit vulnerable in this episode, but I hope that you absolutely learn from my experiences. So I'm curious to know what worked for you and your consulting business. Well, I know I, in fact, had highs and I had lows in my consulting firm, but if there's one thing that I know, I am already conquering 2019. I mean, some amazing things have already happened, and it's because I've taken the time to really reflect on 2018 and what I don't want to happen again. So again, in this episode, I am doing things a little bit different. I'm taking you behind the scenes in my consulting firm. And, I really wanted to do this because I found that there's really no better way to learn than to learn from others who've been there and done that. So I hope that my transparency is really an opportunity for you to learn more about how to effectively and strategically go about things in your business. And I also think it's really important for us to take the time to reflect on our business and often. I mean, so many times we get busy servicing our clients and working out a plan to improve, their business, but we don't take the time to reflect on, what really needs to be modified in our own businesses. And so taking the time to really just take a time out and reflect on where you are in your consulting practice. It really does give you the time to, know exactly where you are, where you want to go, where you've been, acknowledge those mistakes you've made so you won't repeat those same mistakes. And also you want to get in the habit of celebrating your successes. And so it's really no different like when we're contracted with an organization, we work with them, we go in, we assess their business, we provide them with tips and guidance, we go back and reassess if our solutions work. If you're going to be doing that for someone else's business, again, be sure you're taking the same time to do that in your business. Again, remember, you want to know what's working and what's not working so you won't repeat those same mistakes. So, for those of you who are new to the podcast, before I share with you what worked and what didn't work in my business, I want to take some time so you can understand my consulting practice and the specialty that I work in. So I run a solo consulting practice here in Houston, Texas, and I started my consulting practice back in 2015. And I did this on the side of my nursing role as a nursing house supervisor. So if you're wondering if you yourself can start a consulting business and work full-time or part-time as a clinician, the answer to that question is yes. It's absolutely possible for you to do both. Now, as you get busier, you may want to decrease your hours, but if you need confirmation to move forward, that's exactly how I got started. In fact, it's something that I encourage you to do. You want to have money to be able to fund your consulting firm. So again, if you need confirmation, that's how I started. Now, in my practice, I specialize in healthcare reputation management and digital patient engagement solutions. Now, for those of you who've never heard of reputation management, I help healthcare organizations, individual providers with their own businesses generate revenue by building their online clientele, building their online presence, protecting their brand, creating a great patient experience for their patients online. And a lot of my work is centered around generating more reviews, preventing negative reviews, because no doctor wants a negative review, right? So that's pretty much the problem that I address in my consulting practice. And my main clientele consists of a lot of physician-owned businesses that may have a lot of them have multiple locations. So a lot of urgent cares, a lot of medical spas, a lot of plastic surgeons who have different locations. But most of the clientele I service are in more of the competitive medical space. So they care about how they appear to their patients online. They want those patients to come back for repeat business. So it's all about retention, loyalty, and improving that patient experience. And again, preventing negative reviews. So that's what I specialize in. It's very niche, which there are a lot of doctors who are very much interested in working with me. So that's always exciting. So now that you know a little bit about my consulting firm, I want to talk to you about what worked for me in 2018. So to start, what really worked for me in my business was relationship building. And relationship building, it opened up so many doors for me in 2018. And how I went about doing this was earlier in the year, and I encourage you to do this as well. I made a list of the companies I really wanted to work with. And I did the research on the company, but also the decision makers who were either the business owners or they were high executive leaders or stakeholders in that organization. And when I say research, I'm not talking about just a little bit of research. I mean, I really went in depth and I found out all the intricate little details where I could place myself in the same room with those decision makers. And what's amazing about social media these days, if you find an executive who's willing to place so much information and detail about themselves online, you have access to that. So you want to make sure you leverage platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter to find out more information about that person you want to work with. And so by me being able to leverage those platforms, I knew exactly what conferences they were going to be attending, what associations they were going to be a part of, as well as any local events that they would be attending. And I'm sure you're wondering, well, how did you go about finding so much information? Again, I utilized a lot of social media, but I also utilized our favorite online resource, which is Google. I mean, a simple search can provide you with so much public information. So you want to make sure that you're leveraging social profiles. You want to make sure you're leveraging Google to do your research on these people you want to do business with. And my ultimate goal, again, it was to place myself in the same room with that person. And so I absolutely encourage you to strategically do the same thing. So to give you an example of how this worked for me, there was a doctor who I had been wanting to work with for a long time. She's very prominent in the Houston area. She owns over 20 urgent cares. And I initially sent out a LinkedIn connection request, but never heard anything back. So if that doesn't work, you always go to plan B, right? Well, my plan B was to find out exactly where she was going to be in town. And so a little research led me to a networking event that she was going to be a part of at the Houston Business Journal. here in Houston. And they normally have different events here in town, and you can always find different speakers. And to my surprise, she was going to be a speaker at that event. So it took literally no time for me to buy a ticket, to show up, and to meet her in person. And that's exactly what I did. So from there, it wasn't about selling to her immediately and just giving her my business card. It was about building a relationship with her, building trust with her, adding value to her practices, and keeping in contact with her. So I took her business card, reached out to her immediately. I mean, we had a great conversation there. She remembered who I was, and that relationship continued. And when she was ready, she reached out to me for a business opportunity. So that's how you strategically work that relationship building model. You find out who you want to work with, find out where they are, and place yourself in the same room as them. Another great way I was able to build relationships, and something that really worked for me in 2018, was really maximizing LinkedIn. Now, I made a lot of connections, but I made strategic connections with those who I wanted to do business with. So it wasn't about accepting, friends into my network or inviting family members into my network. It was all about connecting with people who I admired, connecting with mentors, and connecting with those I wanted to do business with. And once I made those connections, I wouldn't just connect with them and they never heard from me again. It was about, again, me sending them valuable tips, sending messages, around the holidays, letting them know I was thinking about them, and then inviting them to some of the webinars that I host. And again, it's not about, you connect with someone and then you immediately start to sell to them. It's not about that. It is about building trust that leads to, them becoming a lead, and that leads to you making a sale. So I want you to keep that in mind. How are you building relationships that can later lead to sales? And 9 times out of 10, it'll always, go back to, does this person like you? Do they trust you? Are you adding value? And they'll eventually have buy-in with you. So LinkedIn absolutely allowed me to make those connections and build those relationships. Now, a great marketing strategy that worked for me in 2018, and I am going to continue this practice, is sending out cold emails. Now, if you've never heard of cold emailing before, it allows you to be able to generate a lot of business, and you send out a lot of emails to strangers. But before you send those emails out to strangers, you need to be able to research and qualify them as your ideal client. You have to be able to assess and research their business to see if you can even, provide them with the solution ahead of time. And once you've qualified them, you find their email address. And I did a lot of this with data scraping on the internet. And then once you have all their information, you can service them, you've qualified them as a lead, then you send a very personalized email to them. And again, the whole rhyme and reason behind a cold email is, again, this person does not know you. So you have to be really strategic about your subject line if they're going to be able to open that email. You don't want to write a very lengthy email because no one wants to read this long, 3-paragraph letter from a stranger. So I really learned how to modify my copy in 2018. I learned how to edit and implement subject lines that got my email open rates higher. So once I got those things down packed, cold emailing generated a lot of revenue for my consulting firm. And then something else I learned when it comes to cold emailing is, it's not about sending out just one email and expecting to land a client immediately. It's about following up consistently through setting up an email campaign. And when I initially learned about cold emailing strategies, I was under the impression that maybe 3 or 4 emails would be enough, but I was absolutely wrong. That's not enough to get the attention of the person you want to work with. Because if you think about it, you're a busy professional. If someone owns a business or if they're an executive, they're also very busy and they may not have the time to go through emails, and your email may be easily deleted or easily skipped. So you have to, again, follow up and be consistent. So what worked for me was setting up an email campaign with about 12 to 14 emails, which sounds like a lot. but it's not. And the reason why I had so many email campaigns is because it takes on average about 12 times when you're connecting with someone you want to do business with for them to actually respond to your message. And the software that allowed me to make that email campaign that I use is called Yesware. It's spelled Yesware, Yesware. So that allowed me to automatically send out emails, 12 to 14 touches. And I would write those emails scripted, make sure my copy was great, personalized it, and Yesware software sent those emails out for me at certain times and days that I already set in the software solution. So that absolutely worked for me. And you can use Yesware as a Google extension or as an Chrome extension on your G Suite account. So that worked for me in 2018. Now, from an operational standpoint, something that really worked for me in 2018 was hiring a virtual assistant. And this literally saved my business. And, as nurses and other clinicians, we're used to delegating. But a lot of times in our business, especially with a new business, our business is our baby. We want to make sure that everything is done a certain way. We think that no one else can do it any other way but our way, or do a good of a job as we do. And so it takes some time for you to be able to trust someone to be able to do that. But because I had such distrust for so long, I was drowning in my business. And so I came to a point where I was like, you know what, I can't do everything and be everything and then continue to grow my firm. I have to bring in help. So help for you may be a subcontractor. It may be a personal assistant. It may be a virtual assistant. I knew what would work for me, and I wanted a virtual assistant. And so it wasn't about just hiring one. I brought on 3 virtual assistants in 2018. And the great thing about it is they are all rock stars and they've helped me tremendously. So I have one virtual assistant that handles business operations, and I have another who handles all things social media. And my last virtual assistant, she does a lot of data scraping. So if you remember, I said I send out a lot of cold emails. And to send out cold emails, you need to be able to scrape the internet for data, for email addresses. And she was able to do that information for me. And so this was a time saver for me and definitely worth the investment. So now that you know what worked for me in 2018, I really want to talk about what didn't work for me in my consulting practice in 2018. So I typically don't set small goals. I set extraordinary goals. And it's something I will most likely always do. I can't change that. That's who I am. And if you're listening to this podcast and you're interested in consultant, or maybe you already are a consultant, I know that you're probably also an overachiever. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, it caused me to consistently feel overwhelmed, and it led me to not being as productive as I would have liked. And I felt like, with me taking on so many different tasks and responsibilities, I really couldn't be there and go above and beyond for my clients like I would have. And I don't know about you, but when I feel overwhelmed, it really does take me to a dark place. And my sole purpose is to show up and provide my clients with the best experience. So, I was trying to do, again, too much at one time. I was trying to market and run my business. I started a PhD program. I launched the Nurse Consultant Network in 2018. And I was also trying to be the best mother I could be to my daughter. And again, bottom line, I took on just way too much. And it took a lot of time for me to admit that I was taking on too much because, we all want to do all things and be all things. But I had to come to the realization that in due time, I can accomplish every single goal on my to-do list. So I had to take a step back and just get really real with myself and prioritize my goals. And this meant that, what do I need to do right now to be able to accomplish the goal that's most important to me? And so this meant I had to really think about, building a team in my business and delegating work so I could show up for my consulting clients. And then it also meant okay, do I want this PhD or do I want to grow my business? And for me, that meant, okay, I'm servicing clients. I'm making the money I want. I can make even more money if I put in more time. So I put a pause on the PhD program because I want to get my consulting firm to a place where it can run on its own without me. And when it can run on its own without me, then I can focus on getting that PhD. So I put a pause on the program, but it definitely was an exciting feeling to get accepted and to start that journey again. So I'm still excited about that, and I'll get back to it. And it also meant, I had to take a step back and stop marketing the Nurse Consultant Network until I could truly mentor those nurses who needed me. And so I walked out of 2018 realizing that I needed to implement a healthy work-life balance into my business and my life. And so not only do you have to care for yourself, but you need to be able to realize those things to better run your business more efficiently. Now, the last thing that didn't work for me in 2018, and I am absolutely leaving behind, is procrastination. Oh my goodness, the killer of all of us, right? Well, if you've mastered procrastination, please send me your tips. You can email me or reach out to me on social anytime. Tell me what's working for you. But I definitely know that this is something that I cannot and will not take with me in 2019. And I came to the realization also that you just cannot be in business and procrastinate. It absolutely will impact your cash flow. So I lost a lot of money, you guys, because I didn't get back to a client in time because I was so overwhelmed with so many tasks, or I just didn't follow up. And that's not a good thing. You have to have certain systems and processes in place to be able to follow up consistently, to get back to clients, to send an email once you hang up the phone. And so a lot of this required me to modify my systems. And again, once I brought in my virtual assistants, it really did change things for me. So I delegated a lot of these tasks to my operations virtual assistant. And so now she's able to go in and answer those low priority emails and upload any leads to my CRM. So I'm getting alerts when I'm supposed to follow up with someone or send an email. So that's a great reason why systems are so important in your business, because if you're a person that procrastinates and things just fall by the wayside and you don't have systems, again, you're not going to do well in business and you're not going to make any money. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode and you took away some valuable lessons that impacted my consulting practice in 2018. And if you enjoyed this information, do me a favor and subscribe, and so that way you can receive notifications when the podcast is released. And also, if you're listening to this on iTunes, be sure to give us a 5-star review. Until next time, I'll chat with you soon. Take care. Hold on before you go. If you're interested in launching your nurse consulting practice and need a step-by-step roadmap to follow, check out thenurseconsultantnetwork.com. Inside our Members Academy, we have courses, business training videos, and more to make launching your consulting practice as simple as possible. Go to www.thenurseconsultantnetwork.com/join for more information.
Thanks for listening to the Network Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you're ready to monetize your knowledge as a consultant, head over to thenurseconsultantnetwork.com and check out our free resources. Until next time.